This is our first study lesson, where we will be covering the scope of the FAIS Act in 3 parts. In Part 1, we focus on the objectives of the FAIS Act and introduction to the jurisdictional elements. In the pre-reading, we established that the FAIS Act is one of South Africa's consumer protection laws. The FAIS Act was promulgated, meaning enacted and signed by the President, in November 2002, and it became effective in September 2004. The objectives of the FAIS Act, as stated in the legislation, are to maintain trust in the financial services industry and to support systemic stability. Systemic stability means that if a large institution, such as a bank, fails, it should not cause a domino effect that results in the failure of other institutions or the financial system as a whole. In practical terms, these objectives are achieved by ensuring that financial services providers and their sales force are authorized for the correct scope of business and that they meet the required legal standards. These legal standards are known as the fit and proper requirements. The ultimate purpose of these requirements is to ensure that clients receive correct and appropriate information so that they can make informed and sound buying decisions. This is the core purpose of any consumer protection law. In the pre-reading, you would also have seen that the regulatory exams test 4 cognitive levels. These are knowledge, comprehension, application, and analysis. At the analysis level, candidates are required to choose the most correct answer. Analysis questions often involve gray areas where the law does not give a single clear instruction. In these cases, when applying the FAIS Act, the most correct answer will always be the one that best ensures correct authorization, compliance with fit and proper requirements, and proper disclosure of information to the client. Whenever you are uncertain in an exam question, you should choose the option that most closely aligns with proper authorization, appropriate standards, and the protection of the client through correct information. The scope of the FAIS Act refers to which commercial activities are regulated under FAIS. The FAIS Act states that it regulates the provision of a financial service in relation to a financial product to a client. In practical terms, this means that in any commercial activity, if all 3 elements are present, a financial service, a financial product, and a client, then that activity is regulated under FAIS. Now let's look at a practical example. Imagine someone is handing out a pamphlet at a taxi rank. The pamphlet comes from AVBOB and states, Best Funeral Policy, suitable for all working South Africans. The question is, does that person fall under the FAIS Act? In other words, does that person need to be authorized as a representative? At this stage, even though we know that all 3 elements must be present, a financial service, a financial product, and a client, we cannot yet answer this question with confidence. The reason is that we do not yet understand the practical meaning of these elements. To find the practical meaning, we must look at the definitions in the Act. The definitions section of an Act explains how specific words and elements must be interpreted in practice. So let us now examine the definitions of each element. Once we understand their practical meaning, we will return to this scenario and determine whether this activity falls within the scope of the FAIS Act. Now, the first element we are going to define is a financial service. The FAIS Act defines a financial service as advice and/or an intermediary service. When studying, it is very important to pay attention to the small words, because this is where the practical meaning is found. The key words to take note of here are and/or. In practical terms, this means that if a person provides advice only, the law regards that person as providing a financial service, and the practical consequence is that the person must be authorized as a representative. If a person provides intermediary services only, this is also regarded as a financial service, and that person must be authorized as a representative. If a person provides both advice and intermediary services, this is likewise regarded as a financial service, and the person must be authorized as a representative. A typical exam question that flows from this definition is the following. Which of the following is regarded as a financial service? Option A, advice only. Yes, this is regarded as a financial service. Option B, intermediary services only. This is also regarded as a financial service. Option C, advice and intermediary services. This is also regarded as a financial service. Option D, all of the above. The correct answer is D, all of the above. It is important to note that in the regulatory examinations, questions do not always follow common multiple-choice rules. There is a rumor that the correct answer can never be all of the above, or none of the above. This is not correct. Because these examinations deal with legal definitions and legal elements, it is perfectly acceptable for a question to have all of the above, or none of the above, as the correct answer. In the regulatory exams, both types of answers do appear. So do not assume that all of the above or none of the above can never be correct in the regulatory examinations. This concludes part 1 of the lesson. Please follow part 2, where we will continue by considering the definitions of advice and intermediary service.